Wells Fargo staged fake job interviews for black people. Joe Bruno, a former executive in the wealth management division of Wells Fargo, had long been troubled by the way his unit handled certain job interviews. For many open positions, employees would interview a diverse candidate, the bank's term for a woman or person of color. But Bruno noticed that often, the so-called diverse candidate would be interviewed for a job that had already been promised to someone else. He complained to his bosses. They dismissed his claims. In August, Bruno, 58, was fired. In an interview, he said Wells Fargo retaliated against him for telling his superiors that the fake interviews were inappropriate, morally wrong, ethically wrong. Wells Fargo said Bruno was dismissed for retaliating against a fellow employee. Bruno is one of 7 current and former Wells Fargo employees who said they were instructed by their direct bosses or human resources managers in the bank's wealth management unit to interview diverse candidates, even though the decision had already been made to give the job to another candidate. 5 others said they were aware of the practice, or helped to arrange it. The interviews, they said, seemed to be more about helping Wells Fargo record its diversity efforts on paper, rather than hiring more women or people of color. All but 3 spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were afraid of losing their jobs at Wells Fargo or their new employers. In an emailed statement, Rochelle Burton, a Wells Fargo spokesperson, said the bank expected all employees to follow its hiring policies and guidelines. To the extent that individual employees are engaging in the behavior as described by the New York Times, we do not tolerate it, Burton said. Burton said she was aware that informal directives about hiring diverse candidates had long circulated inside the bank. But those rules were from an earlier era that the bank's current leaders had nothing to do with, she added. Most of Wells Fargo's top management turned over in 2020 after a scandal involving the creation of fraudulent accounts damaged the bank's reputation and led to more than $4.5 billion in fines. The internal confusion around Wells Fargo's diversity policies highlights how even the noblest goals can end up getting warped as they make their way from idea to practice, ultimately hurting the very people they were meant to help. 2 years ago, in light of the national reckoning on race that followed the murder of George Floyd, Wells Fargo was among the companies that pledged to increase diversity. In a June 2020 memo to employees, the CEO of Wells Fargo pledged to consider a wider array of candidates for jobs at the bank but added that the bank struggled to find qualified black candidates. He later apologized for the comment when the memo became public in September. After Scharf's directive, Wells Fargo adopted a formal policy in requiring that a diverse slate of candidates would have to be interviewed for all open jobs paying more than $100,000 a year. That August, Wells Fargo paid nearly $8 million to settle a claim by the Department of Labor that it had discriminated against more than 30,000 black job applicants for positions in banking, sales and support roles. Wells Fargo had already been trying to increase diversity. In 2013, a group of black financial advisors at Wells Fargo sued the bank for racial discrimination, saying they were corralled into poor neighborhoods and kept away from opportunities to win new clients. The bank settled the case in 2017. Wells Fargo paid nearly $36 million to about 320 members of the class action lawsuit and pledged to take actions designed to enhance opportunities for employment, earnings, and advancement of African American financial advisors and financial advisor trainees. As the lawsuit progressed, Wells Fargo began requiring that at least one woman or person of color needed to be interviewed for each open job, Burton said. She added that the policy was not written down and was only for certain senior positions. Well-intentioned people created these initiatives, but when they hit the ground, the energy was devoted not to implementing them but finding a way to get around them, said Linda Friedman, the lawyer for the black financial advisors involved in 2017 Wells Fargo settlement. Bruno joined Wells Fargo in 2000 and worked his way up to market leader for Wells Fargo Advisors in Jacksonville, Florida. He oversaw 14 branches of the bank's wealth management operation. He saw himself as a champion of diversity. Bruno said he eventually refused to conduct the interviews at Wells Fargo. "I got a black person on the other side of the table who has no shot at getting the job," he told his bosses.